All right, music fans, welcome. Harmless Dave here, battling some kind of respiratory thing here, but I'm still doing what I normally do, and doing it in real time for a couple of people who care, just like you there and like me here. This episode brought to you by Buy Me Some Medication. All right, mug looking a little like it's dripping. No, it's actually Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon, YouTube memberships, PJ Rock super chats, and just subscribe to the channel. Don't forget about Patreon if I didn't mention Patreon, because again, when you're on medication, sometimes you forget what you just said. And it also happens with older folks too. We just forget stuff. So, Steve Kerr, who is Steve Kerr? Well, he's the coach for the Golden State Warriors. And what's happening during press conferences now, I saw one where a bunch of tennis players the other day were asked questions about politics. And people say, you shouldn't inject politics into your coverage of musicians and so forth. And I think I'm pretty unique in that regard. So who else is doing that? Do you know anybody else on this platform or other platforms that spends any time analyzing what these people actually believe? So Steve Kerr called for Americans to appeal to their better angels after the latest shooting in Minneapolis. And this is what he says here. It's an amazing statement, and you should write this down. Write it down. Tell your friends. It doesn't matter what side of the political divide you're on, lamenting that we are being divided by media for profit. Media for profit. Steve Kerr, the prophet himself, not that kind of prophet, another kind. Kerr delivered his remarks Sunday after his team's game against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And he was responding because it was postponed due to the shooting of this guy, Alex Preddy, by U.S. Border Patrol agents this weekend. Now, people are hitting me with some comments, not a lot of comments, but I'm getting a few people saying, Dave, how come you don't interview all of the priests on the ground or the clergy or whoever who are fighting against this tyranny and this terrorism in the streets? And I'm like, I don't think they want to come on my show, number one. Number two is I'm mostly sympathetic to law enforcement. I am getting a little bit squeamish, though. I'll use that word because I couldn't think of another one, about some of the lethality, if that's another word that's correct, involved with this. Why do we have to shoot to kill? I'm just putting it out there. And think of it this way: these people become martyrs for this cause. So you round up all of your border agents and you just say, you know what, guys, let's get out of here. They don't want us here. And the problem with that is criminals will continue to be criminals. And I would say, well, these people are choosing to live here. And this is the way they vote, right? They vote for these people. So let them eat cake. Let them have what they want. If this is what they want, as long as they're not crossing the border here in Florida. I mean, it's weird because Florida tends to cooperate with the federal government. And so when they do these sting operations or whatever you'd like to call them, they go seamlessly. They don't have people pushing back against them. They don't have protesters running around obstructing what they're trying to do. And as I've stated before on this channel, I think the best way to mitigate harm against yourself is to cooperate with law enforcement and not get in the way of what they're doing. Now, again, I don't like what's happening out there. We let how many people into this country over the last few years? A lot of these folks don't seem to want to assimilate. And then you've got a whole other group of people who were career criminals where they came from. People are forgetting this. There was some accuracy in the statements or the one statement at the beginning which said they are not sending their best, which was a very gentle way of saying there are criminals, there are gang members, there are people who are doing harm to women and children, not to mention all of the human trafficking going on here. So Steve Kerr, who is a coach of a basketball team, ends up saying something unbelievably accurate. He goes on to say this: as a way forward, Kerr appealed to the Constitution. He says, we've never been perfect, but I think our ideals have been in the right place for a long time, our values, and I think no matter what side of the aisle you stand on, I think remembering the values that come with the Constitution, that come with citizenship, the values of looking after each other are so important right now just because of the extremism that we can feel from all over the place. People are so angry. Kerr pleaded with Americans to appeal to their better angels and not be led astray by misinformation and profit. There should be an appeal. We've been divided by media for profit, by misinformation. There's so much out there that is really difficult for all of us to reconcile. In times like these, you have to lean on values and who you are and who you want to be, either as an individual or as a country. And I think that's the biggest thing. So I think that's well said. And it could apply to either side of this argument, appealing to your better angels. Things are getting a little aggressive. And I would say if this is what they want in their community, right? If most people keep voting for this. Now, you may come up with conspiracy theories like people aren't voting for this and the elections are rigged, and they could be. I'm not saying, I've been called all kinds of names here, conspiracy theorists, yada, yada. But anytime an election is won, the other side cries foul. Well, everybody wanted to vote for me. I don't understand why they voted for the other guy. And now we live in this 24-hour news cycle of questioning everything, okay? And some things, yes, you need to question. I believe in questioning everything. I'm a big questioner of what happened in 2020 and 2021. Big questioner. Never will stop asking those questions. You know why? Because many of them have not been answered still to this day. And you got people out there continuing the same narrative depending on where you live here in the United States. It's really tragic. And in other foreign countries as well, people continue to push information from the World Health Organization. I'm glad we pulled out of the World Health Organization. We should be running our own healthcare. We should be making decisions right here in the United States. In fact, that should be done at the state and local level. And when it comes to law enforcement, if this is what people in that state want, if they want criminals running around who could possibly hurt their children and others, then this is what they voted for. It's sad. The other issue here is that, can we at least tell the truth about what happened and why it happened? And I think Kerr is making a plea here that there's a lot of misinformation, probably on both sides. Okay, I will admit. My side, quote unquote, tends to want to excuse everything and say, well, they were justified, blah, blah, blah. The other side wants to say Gestapo, which if you want to turn the temperature down, you don't say Gestapo. You gotta stop it. This guy, Tim Walz, needs to resign. He needs to get out of office. Let someone else do it. The mayor, too, needs to pound sand somewhere. Go get a resort home somewhere and just live out your life in a nice, warm climate. That way you can get away from the cold Minnesota weather. All right? It's kind of like when the rock stars would talk too much and they should just play their music. These guys are politicians, though, but they're talking too much. How about trying to figure out what's going on in your community? If there are bad guys there, you should be trying to get them out. But apparently, these people are really hell-bent on protecting the rights of bad guys. All right? Dave, it's in the Constitution. They've got rights. Well, where were they born? Number one, do they have rights? And what kind of rights are afforded to them through the Constitution? I think that's why Steve Kerr brings it up here. Maybe. I don't know. Better angels is always a good idea, no matter what side of this you're on. And that's my measured take because, every time this happens, this is a martyr in the news cycle. And you would think that these people are really concerned about these individuals. They're more concerned about their political movement than the people who are being sacrificed for it. Just putting it out there because I think it's true. All right, people, that's my video on this. It's sad. We do need to turn the temperature down, and we also need to decide what kind of country that we want. Do we want a full-scale invasion where you live? And that's already happened, and thank God it's not happening, at least to my knowledge, at the border anymore. But there are already so many people here, and I don't know. How do you enforce the law when people don't want you to enforce the law?